everyone's having a pleasant afternoon. We're just wrapping up another round trip out to New England, Boston, Mass, Newport, Rhode Island, that type of thing. We did a round trip to Michigan last week. We are rapidly coming up on 25,000 miles on this 2021 F-150 Power Stroke diesel. Still running great, still running like an absolute champ. And we made a video before about how disappointed we were to hear about the death of the second out of three light-duty diesel pickups, specifically the Ram EcoDiesel, which they just announced a couple weeks ago now that they're canceling as of January 2023. And, you know, it's a sad thing to see because for many reasons, as we've explained in the past, we just love diesel engines, and we specifically love this diesel F-150 in just about every way. And, you know, on further thought, it was almost inevitable that these things were just not going to be that popular, and eventually the big three were going to cancel them. The problem is there is a price premium over the gas engines. You know, I think on the F-150, the price premium was about $5,000 over the, you know, a comparable gas engine like the 3.5 or the 2.7 EcoBoost. And unfortunately, the way Americans tend to buy vehicles, they go based on the numbers. And whereas in something like a Super Duty, which you see up there, a very weird Super Duty, by the way, that one has 6 doors and 3 rows of seats, which you'll see in a little bit. The diesel engine in the Super Duty is the hardest working engine. It pulls the biggest and heaviest trailers, and it makes the biggest numbers in terms of horsepower and torque. And so it's just kind of a no-brainer. If you're buying a truck to do work, you're going to get the strongest engine that you can, assuming you can justify the price because you're pulling a 20,000-pound trailer on a regular basis, or because you're carrying a 6,000-pound load on a regular basis. And so it's just obvious. It's just a no-brainer. Again, check that thing out. It's an F-450, 6 doors, 3 rows. A bit of a strange creature there, strange bird. But, you know, again, it's very easy to make the logical business case for why you should buy a truck like that. Much less so for a light duty, because a light duty pickup is not going to be pulling a 15,000-pound trailer. It's not going to be carrying a 5,000-pound payload. And unfortunately, the engines, you know, specifically the diesel engine in a light duty pickup is not the strongest engine, and it cannot pull the biggest trailer, and it cannot post the highest power and torque numbers. And so, and more importantly, almost the way it feels when you drive it, it does not launch like a rocket ship the way the EcoBoost does or the way the PowerBoost does. It accelerates very gradually. You know, you really got to stomp it to get it to get out of its own way. And American drivers, they like high revving engines. They don't like an engine that stays between, say, 1,200 and 1,800 RPM most of the time. They like an engine you can really rev the piss out of and take it up to 5,000, 6,000 RPMs when you're accelerating. And as everyone knows who's spent a lot of time with diesel engines, they really don't like to rev. They run out of juice after about 2,000, 2,500 RPMs. They're done. They're all used up. And we sort of realized that for the final time when we drove this thing back to back with our PowerBoost. We had to take the PowerBoost from Michigan back to Pennsylvania last Thursday, I guess, Thursday night. And, you know, we like that truck a lot. I think we like this one more, the diesel. But there's no denying when you get behind the wheel of the PowerBoost, I mean, that thing launches like a rocket. And I mean, you don't even have to rev it above 2,500 because it's making tons and tons and tons of horsepower and torque. And so it makes you feel like a hero. It's got so much power. It accelerates so effortlessly. It can pass anything you want to pass effortlessly. You can rev it up to 5,000-6,000 RPM if you want. Not that you have to, because it's so strong even in the low and mid range. And it's really no wonder why somebody who is test driving the diesel engine light duty versus at least on the Ford side, in terms of the powertrains, test driving the diesel back to back with the Power Boost or even the 2.7 or the 3.5 EcoBoost, those engines, those gas engines are just so strong. Those engines are just so strong that you kind of have to say, oh God, why again do we need the diesel? And it's not going to come down to the fact that it can tow a bigger trailer. It's not going to come down to the fact that it can tow or that it can carry a heavier load, because it can't. You can't even get the heavy duty payload package, which allows you to carry 2,000 plus pounds of payload. You can't get that. You couldn't get that with the diesel engine. You can only get that with the 3.5 EcoBoost and the 5-liter V8. And so, oh, by the way, you couldn't get Pro Power on board. The 2.4 or the 7.2 or even the 2.0 kilowatt Pro Power onboard inverter generator system. And so all the features that you really wanted, you couldn't get with this engine. And so Ford almost crippled it from the start. You had to have a very, very narrow use case, specifically ours, which is if you drive many thousands of miles each month, or if you spend a lot of time pulling a trailer, then you're going to get stellar gas mileage with the diesel engine, and it's going to pay for itself in no time at all. Meaning it's going to justify the increased monthly payment. It's not as if you're going to pay back your $5,000 investment in it immediately, but most people don't lay out the cash to buy a truck. Most people buy a truck on payments. And so in that respect, yeah, you're going to more than cover your monthly payment, the difference in your monthly payment with the diesel, if you just put a ton of miles on it, because you're getting about 50% better gas mileage with the diesel compared to the gas engine. It's that stark of a difference. In the EcoBoost, or I should say the Power Boost, we would typically get, let's just say, a 30 to 40% difference in your gas mileage. With the Power Boost on the highway, we typically get between 20 and 22 mpgs. With the diesel, we typically get between 28 and 30 mpgs on long trips. At the moment, we're looking at 28.6 over the last 280 miles since early yesterday evening. But typically we come in 29 or 30 mpgs over a 2, 3, 500 mile trip, routinely going between 70 and 80 miles an hour on pretty congested highways here in the Northeast. And so, doing that for thousands of miles over the course of a month, yeah, you're going to more than cover the difference in payment, in your payment that you're paying with a diesel versus any gas engine. With the Power Boost / EcoBoost, 20 to 22 on the highway. With the diesel, 28 to 30. So again, that's somewhere around a 30% to maybe 50% improvement in mileage. And so even though diesel is between, let's say, $5 and $6 versus $3 and $4 right now, no, that's not about right. Diesel's about 15-20% more in terms of cost. When you're getting 30 to 50% better mileage, yeah, you more than make up for that. And unfortunately, that becomes the use case or the business case for buying the diesel light duty. If you just do a ton of driving, or if you tow a lot of big heavy trailers. Heavy meaning up to about 5,000 or 8,000 pounds. You do not want to be towing more than about 8,000 pounds routinely with a light duty pickup. I think this one tops out at 10,000, give or take. The Power Boost tops out around 12,000 for conventional. And then for gooseneck and fifth wheel, I think you can take up to an 8,200 pound trailer with this one, and maybe a 9,100 pound trailer with the Power Boost. And in the case of trailering with a light duty pickup, you don't want to push the limits. In other vehicles and other circumstances, yeah, you can push the limit, but not with trailers in a light duty, because you just don't want to start getting pushed around and get pushed off the road into a ditch or down a cliff trying to pull too big of a trailer with a light duty pickup. But that's, again, on further reflection, that's the reason these engines didn't catch on with the light duty truck buyers, because they were not the strongest engine you could get with this truck. If you wanted horsepower and torque, you're gonna get the gas engine. If you want performance, 0 to 60 quarter mile, you're gonna get the gas engine. And if you want the biggest and heaviest, if you wanted to tow the biggest and heaviest trailers or carry the most payload, you were gonna have to get the gas engine. And so because the diesel couldn't post the best numbers in any of those areas, and because of the way it feels when you step into it and when you take off, it does not launch with the kind of authority that an EcoBoost engine does. It feels like you're driving a truck, a big diesel engine truck, and it's got very strong torque. It's fast enough, but it's not taking off like a rocket the way the EcoBoost or the Power Boost does. And that, unfortunately, the fact that those engines are so strong and so powerful, sort of sealed the fate of the diesel engine. I don't think it was the maintenance. A lot of people say, well, the diesel engines take more maintenance. Not really, to be honest. This thing has taken nothing but oil changes. And then every 10, 15,000 miles, you want to do fuel filters. Eventually, you're going to do a timing belt. After a long, long while, you're going to be doing injectors and maybe a turbo. This thing's a single turbo, by the way, not a twin turbo. But there's things you're not going to be doing. You're not going to be doing cam phasers. You're also not going to be doing spark plugs and coil packs, which you tend to forget about until all of a sudden you're driving the gas engine that's misfiring on you. And you've got one or more spark plugs that are so badly fouled that they're not firing, or you need plug wires, or you need coil packs, and all that gas engine maintenance that you don't have to worry about in a diesel, because it doesn't have an ignition system, because the ignition system is the compression in the cylinders. And diesels tend to have longer, tend to run longer in general. We've got a Cummins that's 400,000 plus. We've got a Duramax going on 400,000, and so diesel engines will last for hundreds of thousands of miles. We got a diesel engine VW Passat going on 100,000. Hasn't needed hardly any maintenance. So I don't think that's the reason. Again, I just think the reason was logically on paper, it was hard to make the business case for buying one of these. And then when you get into it, in terms of the emotional appeal, a diesel does not blow your socks off. And it's not going to outrace anything in a light duty. The place where a diesel makes the most sense is in a 2500, 3500 series truck, where you've got a Duramax, you've got a Power Stroke or a Cummins, and it's generating 400 to 500 horsepower, 1,000 plus pound-feet of torque, and it's going to be able to drag a 30,000 pound trailer down the road, which a gas engine cannot even hope to match. And so that's why people are buying the diesels and the big trucks, because of the tremendous amount of horsepower and torque they can put out, which allows them to pull gigantic trailers and carry heavy loads. And the light duty diesels just weren't going to ever do that. And there's no way they were going to ever outperform the gas engines. Sadly, even the baby Duramax, which I think has somewhere around 480 pound-feet of torque, that's great, but it certainly doesn't have the most horsepower. It doesn't even have 300 horsepower, and gas engines can easily generate 300 plus horsepower these days. So it's just kind of a niche powertrain. And as we saw from the deaths of a lot of other vehicles, like the Chevy Avalanche, it's very, very hard to make a niche vehicle successful in the long run because you just can't generate the sales numbers that you need to justify the investment that it takes to develop and produce and sustain and maintain something with sales that are that small. I think the F-150 diesel was something like 4 to 6% of all sales of all trucks sold by the time they discontinued it. And obviously there's no way Ford was going to keep that engine in production. To put 4 to 6% of their customers into one of them. Even though, again, as we know, it's the superior engine if you're doing a lot of towing of light to medium-sized trailers. If you're towing a boat, if you're towing a 12-foot travel trailer, if you're driving like we do thousands of miles every month, it's definitely the superior powertrain. But that wasn't enough to justify keeping it in production, sadly. And that's why it had to go, and that's why the Ram EcoDiesel is going, and probably why this update, this generation of the baby Duramax, which they just refreshed for 2022 or 3, is probably going to be the last one. Sadly. All right, everyone. Well, thanks again, and great talking with you. Hope that adds a little more perspective to the discussion. We will talk to you again soon. Have a great day.